Well, good morning, church. We are on the second last lesson on Revelation. So with the Christmas service next week, it's all about Revelation 21, which is about going to heaven. Which, if Father Christmas, I want heaven. Okay. So, I like good news. You like good news? It's great to see, Jordan, Alyssa up here and all those sorts of things. I don't know about someone being gorgeous, but, he stayed up last night. Let me tell you. I saw him this morning. There's been latency baptisms, people becoming Christians. In the worldwide movement, despite COVID, 12 churches were planted this year around the world, which was pretty awesome. 17 for this year, next year coming, including Taiwan, Taipei. Which will be awesome. Obviously, it's a lot of joy around Christmas. I've seen some of the outfits that are going to happen next Sunday for the Christmas service. But it was encouraging going out and showing our faith, evangelizing yesterday. Because you go church, and you go Christmas service, and nearly everybody goes to a Christmas service. Even though they're an absolute pagan. Even Muslims go to Christian Christmas services. They're like, let me just hop on board in case there's a free mince pie. And so actually it was quite easy, and I was surprised. So I want to finish the year well, so I want to meet 50 new friends in 2 weeks. And you know what's that like? Because all these young guys, these leaders are getting together, and they're meeting lots of people, and it seems like they're just handsome and everybody answers them. But I met 6 people yesterday. I was pretty fired up. It happened every Saturday, do you know what I mean? I was proud of all these young guys. I know I've been giving Paul a hard time nearly every week. My wife's a bit late. Cut him a break. Okay. But I'm very proud of him. He had some different challenges this week, and he went out and met 15 people this week, which is really fantastic. So Paul, that's the first compliment from the pulpit, mate. Record this lesson. You know what I mean? But I'm great. It's a great time. You've got our Christmas banquet coming up for the church, which is always a lot of fun. I know some people are being asked to do the talent show, and believe me, it has been interesting over the years. Who can forget Ned with his harmonica going, twink, go, and then we clapped him, and he thought we thought it was good. You know all those claps like time to get off stage. He goes, "Oh, I'll do it again." You know what I mean? Okay, so when we clap, maybe you've got to go. Does that mean more or less? Does that make sense? But that's what a talent show's for. There's some great things, and who forgets the phone with Wayne and singing like that? You know what I mean? There's been some legends at that time. And of course, we have what's called the Teddy's Award. All right, so it's like the Oscars. So there are nominations for things like the worst haircut. You know what I mean? And then there's nominations for obviously the best server. Why is everybody looking at? Okay, right. All right. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm down for some good news. And Revelation, as we've been reading it, there's a lot of bad news in Revelation. But this chapter's good news. So I entitled it, Satan is Going Down. He's going down. He is bound, loosened for a bit, and then he is destroyed. So not only that, this passage that we're going to take a look at, Revelation 20, is also one that is massively misquoted, which talks about the 1,000-year reign. And so if you meet somebody from some Pentecostal churches or Jehovah's Witness, they're talking about that. So we're going to get into it. Really, when you look at this, honestly, if a person had never attached the doctrine of a 1,000-year reign to this, anybody would just read this passage and go, it's just another normal passage. In context, we've got to imagine the whole of Revelation is all about handling the persecution of the Roman world. And so, right at the end, God goes, I want to remind you, Satan's going down. Maybe there are times this year you went, God, where are you? I mean, really? Lost my job, got COVID, whatever, where are you? He's like, don't worry about it, Satan's going down. I got this. But basically it's introduced how he's bound, which means, he's got power but it's restricted. He's loose for a little bit, got away a little bit, but under God's knowledge, and then it's defeated. So there really is no huge mystery here. What amazes me, though, is how many people absolutely believe in Satan. Actually, I wonder if there's more people believe in Satan than God. Like the boogeyman, whatever you like to call it. And yet, how many people choose not to follow God? That's like going back in time and joining the Nazis, knowing they're going to lose. You go, that would just be stupid, right? But anyway, we were evangelizing yesterday. I was with Jude, and you look for an opportunity to start a conversation. And so this guy's got a big cross on his calf muscle. I go, this is easy. Hey, mate, are you a Christian? And then he's got a cross upside down on his neck. And he goes, no, mate, cross of Satan. I thought, this is really interesting. Why would you choose to follow Satan? Don't you get it that he's evil and wicked? But then I had to correct him. I said, actually, it's not the cross of Satan. It's the cross of St. Peter. And it's actually a symbol that Peter thought that he was so unworthy to be crucified like Jesus, he was crucified upside down. So actually, you've tattooed a symbol of God and of the early church leader right there. He was not happy. He was not happy. But it's amazing, but again, that's how deceptive Satan is. People come up with all these different things. I was like, sorry, mate, that's quite a spiritual tattoo. Not a happy guy. But here, had not there been a mention of a 1,000-year reign and some of this false doctrine out there, perhaps the theory would basically not have developed. It's funny, there was a visitor here last week, came up to me at the end, Jason brought him, because I need to talk to you about the rapture. Do you believe in the rapture? I go, well, I'm not sure what you mean by the rapture because the word's not in the Bible. You go, well, Jesus coming back and you're talking about Revelation, and that just started laying into me. And he goes, prophecies, all that. I said, most of Revelation's already happened. He said, how dare you say that? And I know. I go, have you read the Bible? Oh, no, I don't read the Bible. I said, can I show you this? It doesn't matter what the beginning of Revelation says. I said, it's about what's super. I don't care. I know. Then turned to James, you see this preacher, he doesn't know what he's talking about. At that point I was going, can I ask you to leave? But that is where most people are with Revelation. Most people have never read the entire book, put it into context, and yet they have so many theories about it. Yeah. Basically, Revelation 20 provides the key foundation upon which these millennial theories are based. But if we follow the same reasoning that we've been doing all the way through the book of Revelation, we understand the historical background of the book, the nature of apocalyptic. All right. Can you say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? Or fandabby-dozy. Now there's a word. Fandabby-dozy. Okay. Anyway, all right, okay. But in context, what is Revelation? Well, it talks about Revelation 1:1, the revelation from Jesus Christ which God gave him to show his servants, which must soon take place. So people get in the end of Revelation and go, you've got to take this literally. The 1,000-year reign. Well, how about this verse literally? What will soon take place. Then he talks of the 7 churches. Then he talks about the massive persecution of the Romans. And then all of a sudden we've got some theory about Donald Trump and the European Union. Where did that come from? In approaching all of these difficult passages, there are some fundamental things you need to understand by the Bible. The truth does not contradict itself. So the Bible doesn't contradict itself. Yep. So if 2 verses seem to contradict each other, the problem's with you. In other words, you don't understand what's going on. Right. Okay. You must let the Bible interpret the Bible. A doctrine cannot be based on a difficult passage throwing out everything else. Right. Okay. So my easiest one to understand is repent and be baptized. So Jesus says in some passage, believe and be baptized. In another passage he goes, believe and repent. Another passage he goes, repent and be baptized. You go, man, he's just messed up. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's because you need to believe, repent and be baptized. Yeah. But if somebody already believes, you don't go believe, repent and be baptized. Why? Because they already believe. All right? So if somebody's like a Jew radical with sin and has already repented, just go believe in Jesus and get baptized. So you put them all together because the Bible doesn't contradict itself. So, yeah, okay. So before proceeding with Revelation 20, it's helpful to provide a few mentions on the relating issues of the confusion spread by this premillennial doctrine. In simplest term, their belief is this, that Jesus returns to earth, establishes a physical kingdom with his headquarters in Jerusalem, and will reign there for a literal 1,000 years. Associated doctrines often are the rapture of the righteous to heaven 7 years prior to Christ's return, the appearance of a personal Antichrist, a great tribulation just prior to Jesus' return, and a literal battle of Armageddon. Even a brief look at Revelation 21 to 10 raises at least two fundamental problems with these doctrines. One, the text does not in fact mention a number of things in their doctrine. There is no second coming of Christ mentioned in Revelation 20. Christ is not even mentioned as being on the earth. There is no mention specifically of anybody reigning on earth. A bodily resurrection is not mentioned. And finally, no one living in modern times is mentioned in connection with the 1,000-year reign. The persecution of the early church are the ones who are sitting on the thrones reigning with Christ. So now, how can a passage mention none of these things and yet teach all of them? So basically, there's just a lot of hysteria. You think about it, I remember at the beginning of COVID, this guy phoned me up. Literally, I'd been reaching out to me. He goes, Joe, I went for a COVID test. They put a swab in my nose and they have marked me with the beast and I'm going to die in 3 days. That's literally, I said, it's all right, you're not. I know it, it's the mark of the beast. I've been reading it in Revelation. Phone him up in 3 days. You still all right? Yeah, it's right, I'm negative. Don't worry. Why are people talking so much about it? And it's funny, very often it's religious people. They're petrified because they know what's going on in their own life. Actually, when you think about Judgment Day, I'm like, bring it on, baby. I am waiting. This knee is going, that knee's going, the ear is going. Bring it on. I want to meet Jesus. I want to. So you've got to understand where they're coming from. They're terrified. Two, this passage is full of figurative symbol language. If we insist on making the 1,000 years literal, then everything else must be literal. Where are the keys to the abyss? Where's the great chain? Where is the beast? Why aren't they in this doctrine? So you can't pick and choose the bits and then add some bits. So I thought of this analogy. Okay, so you get a car, right? You go and buy a brand new car. Now there's a manual in the car, that says it's a car. But you get it. And you know how cars are designed and they have a new cool name on the back? They're called Tiger or Jaguar or anyway. Well, there's a Ford Falcon and then there's the Holden Commodore. Imagine doing this, Commodore. Isn't that a captain of a boat? So I think what they really mean is, this is a boat. So I'm going to put some, flippers on the wing mirrors. Okay. I'm going to see if I can get some of those rings you put around you and take the tires off and put them on. Because really, why would they call a car Commodore if it was a car? Surely a Commodore he's a man that leads a boat, so it's meant to be a boat. I know what the manual says, but I'm convinced if you call a car a Commodore, it's a boat. Then you get all of your friends in it, you push it out to sea, and you sink. That's it's ridiculous, right? So you take bits, you add bits, you don't even read the manual, and you mix it all up. That is literally what people do. You're belittling. No, I'm stating the obvious. So, but after all of this, so what is the purpose of this passage? It's right at the end of Revelation. We've been talking about how some of you are going to die, you're going to have your heads cut off, you're going to be all this, and basically God goes, all right, before we come in for the conclusion, the last song, let me just tell you, Satan's going down. You're like, thank goodness for that. Wish it was, put in chapter 5, but okay, we've been hanging around. So point 1, Satan is bound. Revelation 21, and I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the keys to the abyss, and holding in his hand a great chain. He seized the dragon, the ancient serpent, who was the devil or Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss and locked and sealed it over him, to keep him from deceiving the nations anymore until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be set free for a short time. So basically, the point of these first verses is that Satan has been bound in order to stop his horrifying actions against the first century disciples. So when you're bound, you're not destroyed, are you? You're restricted. So the three allies, which are political Rome, material Rome, and emperor worship, okay, he was then limited in some way. So in this dramatic vision, the angel comes down on a mission from God with the keys to the abyss. The key is to denote the angel's authority to access this place and bind up Satan. In other words, who is in the real power? It's God and his angels. So just like Peter had the keys to open the kingdom, it's the good angels actually have the keys to open up and close the abyss. So in what way was Satan bound? Well, not entirely, for he remained a roaring lion, which Peter speaks about. So God limits the power of Satan at certain points. Okay, 1 Peter 5:8, be alert and of sober mind, your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. So why does God even allow evil? Why does God allow Satan? Well, actually, in many times you think about how you learn to be a fighter. So if you're a UFC fighter or whatever that is, how do you learn to do that? Well, you have an opponent, don't you? Yeah, well, this is pretty unfair. You know, to train to be a UFC fighter, somebody's going to try and hit me. I think that's pretty unfair. Well, Satan is allowed to train us to be spiritual. Now, he's allowed, God's still in control, but he's there for us to grow our spiritual muscles. Let me just encourage you, Satan will come after you at Christmas. Satan inspired the credit card system, which is pay now, buy now, and pay later. All right, so that's what sin is, isn't it? Well, I'm going to go and sin, and I hope there aren't any consequences. Then you get a girl pregnant, you go, oh my goodness me, now what am I going to do? And that happened to me before I was a Christian. So you think about those things, and at Christmas, it's amazing. I remember as a young Christian, I was shocked at how weak I was. Really shocked me. So I remember as a young Christian, I was like living with the brothers, and every day you get up and pray, and even when you're lazy, they go, bro, you need to pray, and even when you forget, they go, like King's laughing his head off there. You're like, okay, pray before you go to bed. And I remember I've got a week's holiday. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get up every morning, have this 3-hour prayer time, be with Jesus till lunch and everything like that. Right, then you wake up and it's like 11 o'clock in the morning. And you go, oh, it's lunchtime now, I'll pray after lunch. Then some old movie comes on, you know, maybe it's Thor or something. Oh, watch that and I'll pray later. And you go, oh, look, you know, then dinner's come, mum's cooking dinner, and you go, I'll pray later. Maybe you have a beer and you go, oh, maybe I shouldn't pray if I've just had a beer, and I'll pray tomorrow. And then tomorrow you do the same thing. And all of a sudden, 4 days later, you've had no prayer, no Bible study, and you've only been away from the kingdom for 4 days. And you're like, man, I am pathetic. I remember that. I remember doing that on holiday going, I arrived at holiday going, I am one of the strongest young Christians there is. Like, look at me, look at me. I came back like, okay, I'm so proud, okay. Why am I saying that? Don't do it. I didn't just give you license to do it, okay? Don't do it. All right. People go, Joe did it? Okay, all right, okay. But what does Satan do? Why is he limiting? Well, God's limiting him so he can ebb and flow with the church. So why does the church go through ebbs and flows? It's to train people. If a young leader gets, I'm going to get Bible talk, I'm going to crank it, it's going to grow because I am the great Keanu. I'm going to crank things, it's going to go great. We know, okay. It's like that, and then nothing happens for a year. You're like, God, how dare you treat me like that? It's going, oh, no, it's just revealed your character, has it? Oh, you lead it, not me. Okay. There's all that sort of stuff goes on. But we have to be careful of Satan. Have you ever seen that Tom and Jerry cartoon? Where Tom, there's always Tom, Jerry, there's a cat, the mouse, and then there's the dog. Isn't it? Okay. And the dog's always trying to eat the cat, the cat's trying to eat the mouse. Okay. So Tom the cat, there's the dog in the kennel. And then, there's the dog over there. And the dog's running towards him. He goes, ah! And then the chain clicks in. And, the cat's just there and the dog's going, ooh! And he's like, ah, like this, okay. So Tom the cat draws a line. All right, he goes, and the next day he walks along and the dog goes, and it can't get to him. That's what we're like. I'm going to play with Satan. Like this. And the cat goes along and the dog goes, scrubs out the line, steps back a couple of yards, draws a new line. All right? So the cat comes along, next dog, that's us. I got Satan. I'll be all right. And then, woof. I still remember this. People remember this. We were in LA a year before we left, and Chris Klopek, our preacher, said at the pre-Christmas service, one of you won't be back after Christmas. We went, now everybody's strong. I still remember that. And we looked at that in January and went, yep, one of them went. The issue is, will it be you? Because Satan is prowling around trying to get you. Of course, Satan's limitations are due to the work of Christ. So he was limited in some manner for 1,000 years, only signifying a period of time. So if you've been following with Revelation, in Jewish history, numbers mean things. So 7 is the number of God. 3 is the number of unities, God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. 3.5 or 42 months or 1,260 days is the time of persecution. 6 is just the number of man, because man falls short of the number of 7, which is God. 12 is the number of organized religion. 12 tribes of Israel, 12 apostles. 10 is just a number of completeness. So, 1,000 is 10 times 10 times 10. It's just, for a complete time, God will allow the church to be persecuted. That's it. That's it. The number 1,000 always means just a time of completion. It's not an exact time. So, the 1,000 years is not to be literally taken any more than the other numbers of Revelation. So, Satan was locked and sealed in the abyss and will not be released for 1,000 years. In other words, at a certain time where God looks on the earth and goes, okay, that's enough. The church is growing. Now it needs a bit more persecution. We need persecution. Persecution evangelizes more than we do. You ever notice that? People love to read bad news, don't they? Why do they watch the news? Can you imagine the news comes on tonight? It goes, oh, Jordan bought a fluffy dog. Look at that. Isn't that wonderful? Like, what the heck? I don't know how many people died of COVID. I don't know which politicians getting it. It's bad, isn't it? But we've got to understand that Satan will be locked in Jude 1:6. And the angels did not keep their position of authority, but abandoned their own home. These is kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for judgment on the great day. So there's this place where God goes, okay, Satan and the demons, you go in there for a bit. We need a time for the church to grow. And then you come out of it, it needs a time of persecution. When there's a persecution articles, hey, have you heard about that Sydney International Church? No? Who is it? And then they read about us, and the good-hearted one goes, that's a bit ridiculous. So I was evangelizing with Marin yesterday. He goes, there was a new article on University of South Wales about us. The student was like, you know what? I met these guys from this church. They invited me for dinner, and it was great. And they evangelized on the street, and you know what? Christians shouldn't do that. I was like, he said, they're crazy. I go, they're just evangelizing for us. So we're a loving evangelistic church. Anybody that wants to become a Christian goes, sounds like a place I want to go. And so they're advertising for us. Sometimes we get scared of persecution. If somebody's open, they can see through the rubbish. Yeah. They really, really can. Yeah. So it should be obvious to us that Satan, even from the very first book in the Bible, which is not Genesis, it's actually Job. How does it start off? There's Job, God, and Satan. And Satan goes, hey, can I have a pop at Job? Meaning he needs God's permission. And then basically God goes, yeah, have a pop at him. He'll still be righteous. So he's let loose. Then he's pulled back in. And so even from the very first book in the Bible, we start to see this concept of Satan is still under control of God, and it's all to do with testing our spirituality. So also, this text informs us of the purpose of his limitations. It's to keep him from deceiving the nations. Well, how has he been deceiving the nations? Well, for one thing, he's been deceiving them going, hey, I want you to worship the emperor rather than God. He's deceiving them into thinking that Christians are bad and let's kill them. And I always think, isn't that crazy? Okay, so Christians love people. They give to charity. We set up hospitals, orphanages. What is it exactly that we do that's wrong? Anybody tell me? I'll tell you the one thing people normally have a go at us for. It is, we expect people to love God more than their family. God more than their job. To me, I hear about Daniel. Daniel comes from a close family, obviously a young man like this. And there's that terror. You've got to grow up and go, okay, my parents are awesome and I need to honor them and love them, but not more than God. And so we had to really stand and go, Dad, but I want you to come to the other side, and I want you to see my baptisms. Children go through so many fads. You ever go through a fad as a kid? I used to have a mohawk, believe it or not, okay? So Mum went, mohawk this year, Jesus next year, okay, let's see if it lasts. But that is how your parents view you. Okay, let's just see if it lasts, shall we? Okay. And so you've got to actually have conviction to actually convert them. Even with your jobs, I think Josie had to stand up against the boss. It's amazing, isn't it? So she studies the Bible. Doesn't work on the nights where you have church. All of a sudden that week, just before she's a Christian, you need to work those nights and Sunday morning. And then she moves to the city to be closer to her job and be closer to Christians. As soon as she does that, we're going to put you in Parramatta or something. She's like, this is nuts. What happens? Satan has happened. Yeah. But it's also God going, do you really love me? That's it. It's just, let's just see. And let's be honest, these are minor problems. It's not like, Daniel's, if anything, he'll become a more loving child. But people try and hold things over you, don't you? So one of the common ones for people that are not locals here is your job promises you that they'll sponsor you. And they have this over you. I remember when Eric and the mission team came here, he had about 3 jobs. Well, if you're a good employee, they'll sponsor you. We'll sponsor you. No, they won't. You know why? It costs them $50,000. You go, well, they're so good to me. They really believe in me. They don't care. Why would they spend 50 grand when they can just fire you and get another student? You think they have the same love as Jesus? They don't. People just use and abuse you. They promise you things, and they may even think that they will, but they don't understand how much it will cost. Anyway, going on to chapter 20, verse 4. Look at those reigning with Christ. Here's the good news, okay? I saw the thrones on which were seated those who have been given authority to judge. And I saw the souls of those who have been beheaded because of their testimony for Jesus and because of the word of God. They had not worshipped the beast, which was Rome, or his image, and had not received the mark on their foreheads or their heads. So remember, that if you were a non-Christian, you had to say, Caesar is Lord. Okay, and that's literally what it means. But here's the amazing thing. People go, Christians, you're not allowed to judge. You know who's actually going to judge on Judgment Day? The Christians. They're there with God. God is the ultimate judge, but he's like, I'm too busy to judge everybody. So can you take a few, Pete? Can you take a few thousand? Lane, can you take a few thousand? He said, they're sitting in judgment as well. Why? Because their life is their message. So people get to heaven and go, God, if you loved me more, if I had an easier life, if my parents were better to me, He goes, hold on a second. What do you guys think? Yeah, I got flayed alive for at least a week before I died. And I had my leg chewed by some, lion. And he's going, mate, no. This is the standard. It says, they came to life and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy are those who have part in the first resurrection. The second death has no power over them, but there will be priests of God and of Christ and will reign with them for 1,000 years. Okay, so now we see those who are reigning on thrones along with the souls of those who lost their lives to persecution. Whether dead or alive, the saints are now pictured as reigning in victory with Christ. What does it mean? It basically means that, hey, even if you die, you're still victorious. And that's what blows people away. The reason why we don't really care about this world, in other words, we use the world, it doesn't use us. It's like, we don't care because we're going to be victorious. Make my day, shoot me. I don't care. It's like, you can kill me, but you can't kill me. I mean, there's these new movies out, right? The Immortals. Do you know who the Immortals are? Us. I used to study history, right? I still do, obviously. But many people have looked for the elixir of life, eternal life, whether it's the first emperor of China or Alexander the Great, etc. And I remember reading for the first time, the righteous will be immortal. I just stopped there in my Bible study and said, I am blown away. I am going to live forever. That's stupid. No, literally. I will never cease to exist if I die saved. That is our reward. Just, I can finish the sermon there. That's it. That's the conclusion. I mean, that is mind-blowing. The souls of the altar remind us of Revelation 6:9. Again, we're meant to read the whole book in in one big sort of section. I suppose to break it up like this originally, showing again victory. The scene reminds us of Revelation 11 to 12, where there are two faithful witnesses, and basically the cause of Christ, it goes under persecution, but it rises again, it surges. So when he's bound for a long period of time, 1,000 years, their cause is brought back to life. So you see with the different Roman emperors, there's mass persecution. It looks like the cause, like the church is going to shrink back. Then Nero dies, and they go, okay, well, I know you're trying to kill us, but God, pop off old Nero here. The church surges again, Domitian. And so this like trimming, growing. So I think about, even with COVID, I was talking to Raul, who leads Mexico and South America. He goes, Joe, why do you think COVID's coming back? I'd say, well, I've been studying diseases in the Bible. And every time God lets loose a disease, it's disciplining the kingdom. It is cutting off the uncommitted. If you study that, he's going, I want to purify the world and I want to purify the kingdom. And you think about it, diseases do kill those people that are weak and those subject to different things. In a spiritual concept, if somebody's not really committed, they'll go, I can't. Even after COVID, some people went, I don't want to be a Christian anymore. Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, they were already that uncommitted in their heart. But God just goes, now I'm going to show you the practicals, who's really in the church and who isn't. And you know what? You didn't really commend. People have given their contribution through COVID. Some people have lost jobs, and they're like, man, I'm committed. I mean, I'm going to give. I'm going to love God. I'm going to do that. And you ought to be commended. Yeah. That is what we're meant to be. We are a sold-out base of Christians. We're a sold-out movement. There is nothing. Commitment, I don't even talk about commitment. That's ridiculous. Like, it's like saying, am I committed to my wife? I'm married. What do you think? It's like, are you committed to your kids? I love my kids. They're amazing. It's like, are you committed to God and his kingdom? I don't even understand the concept. You know, if the church moved 3 hours and we met in the Blue Mountains, I'd go, all right, nice long Bible study on the train. I mean, it's like, because if you want something, commitment, it just doesn't even fathom in your head. It's like, wherever we go, whatever we need to do, if I'm asked to move to India like Paul, it's like, okay, Indian Christian, Australian Christian, New Zealand Christian, Papua New Guinea Christian. I mean, it's like, it really doesn't make any difference. Because it's what you are, it's not what you do. John then calls this first resurrection distinguished from the physical resurrection of the dead at the end of time. And you can talk about that in John 5:25 and talk about, well, there is the physical death, and then there is the ultimate spiritual resurrection at the end. All right, point number 2. Satan is released. Scary. Okay, Revelation 27. When the 1,000 years are over, and there was this period where he was bound so the church could grow a bit, Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. In a number they are like sand on the seashore. They march across the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of God's people, the city he loves. But fire came down from heaven and devoured them, and the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophets have been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. So, after a great period of encouragement of the church growing, Satan is then released again. So there's a time for pruning. And you'll see this in the church. You'll see people come into the church, and unfortunately, some people come in for all sorts of wrong motives. God purifies them, and when people leave God's kingdom, leave God, it's not the church doing anything, it's God is pruning them. That's what John 15 says. But he's comes out, in comparison, he's bound for this sort of symbolic time, and when he's released, he will deceive the nations once more. So this is what happened with Rome as the nation then started to persecute. The deceptions of the nations may indicate a wide world persecution, or a global, or a small period. You think about this, how people get deceived. You go, oh, we wouldn't be deceived. It's amazing how many people believe what's on the internet. You ever ask me, have you seen what's on this? And you go, well, I think there's a UFO. Look at this thing. It looks like the Loch Ness Monster. And as in, people read into things. It's mind-blowing also how people are deceived just by some of the obvious things. Like in North Korea, I think it's like the 7th largest religion in the world is the worship of the leader of North Korea. Because they count everybody that actually is in North Korea. And so in that way, a whole nation is deceived. I think even in Australia, our whole nation is deceived that Christianity is bad. It totally is. You evangelize yesterday and people go, I want to invite you. You get that? Nearly always an Anglo like me. Yeah, it's like a disdain, isn't it? It's just like, ooh, what are you doing? Or people are buy into, I think about like the Catholics. Really, like, I'm going to state the obvious, you may be offended, I'm sorry, but here's the thing. I'm a Catholic. Okay, so you're not a Christian. No, I'm a Catholic. Do you know in the Bible it never says a Catholic goes to heaven? We are, because I'm a Catholic. Well, where do you get that from? The Pope says so. And where does the Pope get it from? I don't know. You go, that's so offensive. But you know what? It's so obvious. And it takes you sort of stepping back from something and going, can I just, say, even in the Bible, here's a shocker for you. Nowhere in the Bible does it say to go to heaven you need to be a Christian. Let me just say that again. Nowhere in the Bible does it say to go to heaven you need to be a Christian. The only time the word Christian is said is 3 times. And in all of them it's a slang word varies. It says you need to be a disciple of Jesus, and disciplined in the ways of Jesus. Really shocking stuff, right? Shows you how many people don't read their Bible. Then what about Gog and Magog? Who are they? North Korea, China, Trump? Okay, it's very simple. In the Old Testament, these were just enemies of God. Okay, so Magog is the land over which a Prince Gog rules. I mean, if I was going to attach, meaning today to Gog and Magog, maybe I'd like to think of, Gog as the Bulldogs NRL team, and Magog as New South Wales. I mean, I'm only joking, all right, okay, all right. Oh, they're all leaving now, okay, all right. But you see, how ridiculous that would be? But is it any more ridiculous to somebody say it's North Korea or Trump or somebody like that? It's just the same, right? You go, where did you get that from? Oh, you got it from the fact that you don't like the Bulldogs in New South Wales. In other words, when you attach a personal agenda to the Bible, that's when you twist it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So, in this dramatic vision, these enemies of God surround the camp of the saints, his city and his church. So basically, there are more non-Christians than there are Christians. Kerry and I have actually been in the kingdom where this has literally happened. So I remember we had a church service in London in the Royal Albert Theatre, and which is quite a significant building. They do recordings of concerts and everything there. And the non-Christians literally, with billboards, like the anti-vaxxers type thing, were walking around going, don't go into this church, don't go. And literally the church was surrounded. I remember in Birmingham, we converted this guy Sanjeev from a Hindu background. His family surrounded the church and threatened to burn the church while everybody was in it. So literally, that's what it's giving you an impression, that there will be time. But then he goes, don't worry, fire will come out of heaven and I'll deal with it. So up until this time, the Christians are like, man, it's so much persecution, what's going to happen? Oh no, Satan's going to come out. Well, why is he coming out? God wants to bring everybody out, get them in one place and go, you're dead. That is literally what judgment will be. Judgment Day is like, let's get everybody up. All the dead, all the living, let's put them all and let's split them. And that's what he's basically saying. He's going, I want them to be released so that I can have everybody right in front of me. And this section ends with the devil cast into hell, joining the beast, Rome, and the false prophets, and all the wicked. Their destruction is certain and complete, day and night, forever and ever. Now, the Bible does not answer every question about how Satan works. It gives you a lot of hints if you read it. However, his ultimate end is super clear. Super clear. The issue is, get on the right side. It's great when you see young Christians. Like, I saw Josie last week, and then I didn't see her because, different meetings and stuff, and I saw her on Friday Bible Talk. I went, hey, sis. Like, as in, it's not, hey, visitor or Josie. It's like, hey, you're my sister. Together, come on, yeah. It's just like, you're on my side, I'm on your side, we're on the right side. Whose side are you on? I'm on nobody's side. Oh yes, you are. You are either on the side of God or the side of Satan. Let's go back to many analogies. People go, well, I'm not a Nazi. You ever seen things like a Band of Brothers or anything like that? And they find a concentration camp next to a village or a town. They go, oh, we knew nothing about it. Oh, you know nothing. Oh, you saw the smoke. You saw people buying bread going, where's it going for? It said, you are guilty. I said, I'm not against God. Well, you're not for him. You didn't stand up against the Nazis. You didn't do it. You didn't stand up for Christ. What is it? Edmund Hillary says the only thing the world needs for it to go bad is for good men to do nothing.
Yeah.
That's it. You're doing nothing. So you're on Satan's side. I don't like that. It's a truth. It's a truth. You go to a church that doesn't tell you the truth if you want. It's a church of Satan, as we talked about in Revelation. Remember, synagogue of Satan. You know, I don't like the way that you lay out the truth. I don't like the truth either. How many of the brothers, no one asks this because I know some of I don't really own a mirror. I don't like looking in the mirror. Do you know what I mean? The truth hurts. Okay, this is what Roger does. You know Roger? Oh, Roger, okay, right. Last week, Roger goes, oh, look at me, I've lost 7 Ks. He goes, I know. Beginning of this year, ooh. I'm like, Roger, what the heck? I went, true. Don't you hate the truth? And I was like, oh. So, this week everyone like going, ooh. Boomerang Bible. I remember Manny did that when he first became a Christian. He did like this. About a year ago, I went, we're on it. Point 3. Satan's forces are defeated. Good news. Then, do you like that? Then I saw a great white throne and him who was seated on it. Earth and sky fled from his presence, and there was no place for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne. The book was opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. The dead were judged according to what they had done, as recorded in the books. The sea gave up the dead that were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them. And each person was judged according to what he had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the second death. Anyone's name not found in the book of life, written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. So let's just shorten this. Is your name in the book of life? Imagine this scene. Book of life. Okay, fancy.
Oh, wow.
Judgment Day. Jordan. Oh, hold on, I've got a second one. Can you imagine that? I mean, people don't like talking about this stuff. But I don't know whether it's a reference to how people recorded if you came into university or came into a library. But it obviously with this picture where people understood this electoral roll of, man, I hope my name is in the book of life.
Yeah.
Everything is gone. That's it. Is your name there? And here's a real big one for a lot of religious worlds. You're in according to what you have done. That's what it says. Not what you believe.
Right.
I can believe that I'm a racing car driver. Okay? The only way I could justify that is how many crashes I have. But I'm not a racing car driver. Okay? My point being is what you believe, if it's not followed up by actions, you will not get into heaven. So when people say, you're a church where we're saved by our works, no, we're not, because otherwise you need to be perfect. However, if you love God, believe it is true and there is a heaven and a hell, and you don't evangelize and tell other people about it, I cannot think of a more wicked thing in the entire world.
Yeah.
Imagine I found the cure to cancer, all cancers, and I hid it. And when I died, it was found. And they calculated, if I had told the world about this, that 10 million people would have been saved from cancer. Would I go down in history as somebody that was great and a great scientist, or somebody that was selfish and had destroyed many lives? You see, if we have the gospel, it is our greatest joy to share it. I know, evangelism makes me laugh. I mean, I've struggled over the years to get my head around it. But you think about this. Most people go, I want new friends. All right, I want to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend. I want a new job. I want. As we go out to evangelize, I met 6 new friends on Saturday. I walked up and said, I want to be a new friend with you and bring you to my church. Now there were 40 odd that went, no. But I went, that's pretty amazing. When was the last time you spent a day and met 6 people that went, all right, let's be friends? That's mind-blowing. I go, some of these may be my greatest friends in life. And then God has a habit of putting people in your life that you connect with. So the guys brought this guy over called Tom on Friday. And he goes, I'm the greatest Lord of the Rings fan in the entire world. And I love Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm like, all right, baby, you are my new best friend. And so if you're visiting here, like I've got these figures and Lord of the Rings, and I used to preach this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, Christmas is coming. You've got to come to my house. I want to come to my house. When does that happen? Yeah. Most people meet somebody and go, I bet you're weird. That's how they start. Go, what do you want? I'll buy you a drink. No. What's wrong with you? Nobody buys anybody a drink. I mean, that's the way the world is. It's true though, right? Yeah. And it's blew me away. This year we had a girl leave after studying the Bible with us. She said, I cannot become a Christian because your church is too loving. Too loving. You're weird. You encourage people, you help them move, you make sure their grades are good at school. It's just wrong. You know the real issue? She knew that if she became a Christian, she was going to have to stop being selfish and become that loving too.
Yeah.
And that's what she was really saying. I don't want to become like you. I want the love, but I don't want to be loving. Yeah. So here we see, it's quite interesting. At the end of it, we see Satan's a loser. If you want something to study over Christmas about Satan, there's 2 great books. This is the Kingdom book, The Lion Never Sleeps. It's a small one. Even you can read it even if you sleep until 11 and get your quiet time later. Or one of my favorites, not a Kingdom book, which is Satan and His Kingdom. Everything you need to know about it. This blew me away. Totally blew me away. Answered a lot of that. Very, very good book. But in other words, if you're like, what do I study over Christmas? But here, what do we find out? Right at the end, Satan's going down. Man, you can stand up. You know what I love? One of those folks could say, if you resist Satan, he will flee. I go, mate, off. Go. See you later. On your bike. Bigger muscles than you. Prayer. Like you pray. Dear God, praise you. I'm ready, baby! Satan is bound. There are times, and then really, there are times where the church goes up and down. But understand, God releases him to purify us. Yeah. Why am I going through such a hard time? God wants you to grow. He wants you to deal with the sin deep in your soul so that you never talk about it ever again. And then Satan's forces are defeated. I mean, you want the good news? Forget Father Christmas. I love Father Christmas and we know it's not going to be true. But the real Father Christmas, one who gives us the ultimate gift, is God. My challenge to you, finish the year with a Christmas service. I think the greatest gift that you can give, definitely to anybody, but also to God, is find somebody who becomes a Christian. Yeah. Find somebody who becomes a Christian. That's the ultimate gift, isn't it? You're sitting there on Boxing Day going, I'm baptizing my new best friend, Bob. You know what I mean? You're like, this is pretty awesome. And if you really push this year, maybe they won't become a Christian in, December, but maybe it's January, maybe it's February. How often do you meet somebody, it's like 8 months later they become a Christian? And then you can teach them, Satan is going down. Yeah. There you go.